Okay. Now, Taylor? Mm-hmm. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Councilman Mike Padilla. I'm going to call this first meeting of the Special Committee on Police and Community Relations, or Special Committee on Police and Community. We had a vote. I'm the oldest one in here, so I get to start it off. And we have yet to elect a chair, and so we'll move forward with that as a second item on our agenda. And I would like to, at this point, nominate Councilwoman Sylvia Ortiz as the chair of this committee. Do you have a second?
Second that.
Second. Councilwoman, will you accept?
Absolutely.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So I turn it over now to the chair.
Thank you. I want to start off by introducing everybody on the committee. We'll start with Karen.
Karen Hiller, Councilwoman District 1.
Go ahead.
And Mike Padilla again, District 5.
Thank you. Then I'd like to thank everyone for coming out, and also I believe we have Lisa Robertson and our city attorney, and then Glenda Du Bois on Zoom. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anybody else?
Dr. Overstreet is also on here.
Dr. Overstreet, okay. Okay. I apologize, I lost my glasses, so I'd like to welcome all of you as well.
Introduce yourself anyway.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Ortiz, I represent District 3. This committee has been tasked with special policing issues or concerns, I'll put it that way. And so it's no different than any other committee. When concerns are raised by citizens or staff, we meet and we pick a chair. We've done that. And then we ask for any agenda items to come before us that we want to discuss. I want to say, and I will let my colleagues speak as well, I want to say that this has been very hard, very tedious. It's been very tough. As a committee chair, I will not stand for any rude, I don't do rude very well, or disrespect. What we've been tasked with is different things that are brought to the table. And in that aspect, we will take them one by one, and we will be educated on them. We are tasked with looking at it and then taking it back to the council for approval, recommendation, or not recommending any action. And I want to say that I look forward to being educated with our facts and our truth. Because when you get out there on Facebook, there's a lot of things out there. Us council members have received so many emails that are not factual. And this is what I will be looking at in this committee, whether we can do something about it, whether we need to do something about it, or what needs to be done. With that said, I hope that we can all come together and we can respect each other and respect each other's sides and respect each other's wishes. If not, I will personally shut the meeting down because I don't have a problem with that. Because we cannot, with so much that has gone on, we have to, this committee right here has to come together now and gap everybody together. And we've got to bring everybody together so we can understand what we're doing and how we're doing it. And that's how I feel. And it's not an easy task. I received emails that say, don't work with this one, don't work with that one, don't do this, don't do that. I don't want that, I want facts. Another thing is, I have not been working, I got a call this morning, I've received tons of calls. I have not been working independently with any individual group. I've talked to several people. So I want to put that out there. I'm going to be very biased. I'm not, anything that needs to come on this agenda needs to come before this committee. We're not gonna have any side talks, we're not gonna have any side deals. It's gonna be straight up right here. If you have something to submit to the committee, you can submit it to Liz, and she will give it to me, and we will set our agenda. We're gonna start out so that staff has time to prepare, so that people have time to ask questions and they have time to prepare. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask me. But that's my goal, is to see how we can do this and cut out all of this stuff, finger pointing, BS, all of it. And get to the real facts. Because we can't get to the facts unless we all come to the table with respect and dignity of each other. Mr. Padilla, would you like to say anything?
I'll defer to Councilwoman Hiller first.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
He'll wrap it all up. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate everything that you said and that you've taken on this committee. I personally am a little bit nervous, as you could imagine, but very much honored to have been asked to serve on this committee and to serve with the two of you. These are serious, serious issues in our community. I do think that in my experience, both on the council itself as well as in the public, and I've said this before in a council meeting, that I think there's full support for policing and for our police department, and that there is further full support for people of color and making sure that there is full equity in how people are treated if in fact there is disparity. And I don't see any reason why those two full support agendas cannot work together. And that's certainly the orientation that I have in this committee. There's also general opinion, and again, this is from people that have testified as well, the support for police and the support for people of color. There's also support for our particular police department, that it's good in many, many ways, and we've appreciated that tremendously. There's also general consensus that there's always room for improvement, and I've been so comforted that the chief and the members of the union and the members of the department have all said, we're open to improvement, let's talk about what the issues are. And so that's about as good a way to come into a session like this as it could be. I'm reminded, well, our chair talked about facts. I totally agree on that. Keep it local, keep it facts. And I think we need to take a problem-solving approach, which is to take those facts and then get educated from whomever we need. And I don't know whether we're going to take a lot of testimony, general testimony or not, since we've already heard so much, but I do expect that we will identify what we're pretty certain about and let people tell us if we're right or wrong, and then ask for the data or the information that we do need so that we can make a good recommendation to the council. I just think true commitment on the part of everyone will help get us through. And I'm reminded that we are the town of Brown, or the home of Brown v. Board, where people came originally for freedom and opportunity. It's what we're all about, from the covered wagon days to throughout our history, before the Civil War, through civil rights, and to today. And that also includes freedom of speech and appreciating that people have different points of view. And with that, why shouldn't Topeka do it right and do it right now? So that will keep me going, is why not Topeka? And I hope we can all rally around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, welcome for those people who are with us in the room and those who are watching online. To follow up on my colleagues, I really want to stress the fact that this committee has really thought about the seriousness of this topic. Not to say that the other things aren't in this city that are going on right now aren't serious as well, but this goes to the heart and the safety of our community. And so we're not taking our obligation to serve this committee lightly, nor are we inclined to be swayed by rhetoric or impassioned allegations. I, as a former police officer, dealt in facts, and that's how I want to continue to do that, deal in facts. I don't want to get caught up in a he said, she said. I want black and white facts so that we can talk about whether or not we're in the right place. And I am going into this effort with an open mind that I believe that Topeka has always had a hallmark of their agency of being ready to improve where necessary, to be a leader in the field of law enforcement. And from my experience in looking at my colleagues here, I think this is a good selection for this committee because there isn't a single one of us who hasn't spent decades, literally, working with the community. So if somebody alleges that we don't know what we're talking about, if we don't know what it's like on the east side, north side, west side, south side of this town, they're mistaken, because we've been involved with all aspects of the city. So we have a good all-around understanding of the needs of this city. And so we understand that it's important to hear those varying perspectives because we all don't see the problem the same way. Some of us don't see a problem. Some of us are looking for problems. So we have to be open-minded and approach this with the integrity that I expect that any recommendations, if any, come out of this committee will be honest and sincere, and that we can present them to the full body based on facts, not on an opinion. So again, I encourage people who want to be interested in the process to be in tune, offer what you can when asked, and keep it civilized as much as possible because I'm proud of this city. I'm proud of the police department that I've served for, and I don't want us to go down a road that other people want us to take us down. This is our committee. This is our fact-finding mission, and that's how I will serve on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that says a lot, Mike. You have 30 years of experience. I'm the longest running council member, and Karen does her homework. You know, her book report said 100 words. She gives it 500. So I just want to be very upfront. You know, I was born and raised in Topeka, love Topeka, still live in East Topeka, probably never move out of East Topeka, looking to buy my plot over there. And like I said before, we've had good officers, we have bad officers, we have good individuals, we have bad individuals. So with that being said, we can get started. But I wanted to clear the air and get that out of the way because I'm just tired of the back and forth and the pointing of the finger, and I'm ready to let's dig into this and see what the outcome is going to be. And if you don't know me, then now you do. And if you don't know me, know that I'm not rubber stamping anything in 2 days. I take my time. I make sure that everybody has a clear understanding, and Karen can tell you that. Sometimes she probably thought I was never going to bring out a committee. Because what I want to do is I want to discuss A and B and then come back for a follow-up the next one. Because, you know, sometimes when we're here and we're discussing things, we don't always get the gist of everything, so we might have follow-up questions, if you guys don't mind. Sometimes I like those follow-up questions, or if there's somebody that's on the Zoom, or if there's somebody that comes in, they might have a follow-up question, which might be a question that we haven't really thought about, or it might be something that we need to be educated more on. So we'll always have a couple of things so staff can prepare and other people can prepare and then do a follow-up. So with that, let's discuss and prioritize. I would just like to start with I don't know if you guys want to throw everything out there. I know we've received several emails from different people on what we want to do. What I'd like to make sure that we do is keep it so we're not, you know, if A and B goes together, so we kind of get the gist of that. If not, so we're not wasting anybody's time. And these two could be similar, if not apart. So with that, where do we want to start? I don't care who brings what to the table, because there's going to be things that we just can't do. And we need to look at that and state that on the record that this is at a state level or there's nothing that we can do. So with that being said, the floor is open for discussion.
If I may, Madam Chair. Trying to find a place to start with everything that's been brought forward. I think it's going to be necessary. And reading through the documents that have been presented and the information that we've received, I, like you, believe that grouping topics in an area that may all have relevance to each other probably is the best way to move forward and to start. And I think, I don't even know yet that today we could start getting that information to us, but maybe an idea of maybe the first step. For me, and I've spoken a little bit about this beforehand, about what seems to bring to me that is getting the most attention is use of force. And use of force, I think, is something that's important to understand first what we as a city have with our police department with regards to training and procedures, policies, how to follow through with any use of force. And as we discuss that, I think some of the other issues may be brought to the discussion. And as you said, I think there's a lot of misinformation. Like you, I get a lot of emails. It's been suggested to me that I list up or sign up for the police academy, Police Citizens Academy, and go for a ride along before I know what I'm talking about. But I think I've done that. But there are a lot of people out there who just make assumptions about what is taught, what is practiced, and how it is enforced as an agency and as a community expectation of our police department. So for me, that's kind of an area that I'm thinking about, and I think that Councilwoman Hilder may have some thoughts on this, is that, use of force and training, I think addresses, for me, a lot of the topics that seem to float out there. And maybe that's a point where we start. It's just a suggestion.
What I'm looking for today is 2 things with maybe 3 things, so that if we get through the same 2, we can go to the 3rd one. But use of force and training, I think on every individual topic, I would want to know how they're trained. So I will be asking on every single topic.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but use of force can be one. Karen?
I agree, and I had floated some stuff around earlier, even before this committee was formed, doing my best to list all the topics and then figure out which should go first. I agree with you. And I've got a list that maybe we want to float out and get comments on even, but I grouped them into use of force. But there's like 11 different things that have been raised that are under use of force.
Well,
but anyway,
if we may take the 11, I just want, again, Karen, if we can take the 11 and you want to throw it out there and then we can vote on it. I don't want to start taking a whole bunch of comments because we're going to have a longer list, I believe. And that can come later. I just want us to get to a starting point, and maybe that will help people to throw out or whatever questions they have.
I just wanted to finish my general view of it
Okay.
myself. I originally had recorded 17 items. A few more have come up. I think my list now has about 20 on them, but to group them, to manage them, I did do that, and I don't, whether we want to take a whole section and know in advance what all is in it or not is, I want people to know that they've been heard, and I want them to know whether or not what they thought was really important is on our list, even if we choose to start with just 1 or 2. I do agree with Councilman Padilla and you. I think that we need, with every item that we talk about, first, we need to know the facts. What's happening out in the community? Why are we even talking about this? And what's happening in Topeka? And maybe limit it to the last 5 or 10 years, not forever. We all have long memories. But then we do need to be educated about not only the training, but if we have problems, we're going to find that they're rooted in either training or the administrative policies and procedures, which our department displays, but still, it might be there. It might be in the law itself, or it might be in somebody else's law or courts, or even the problem or the solution could be elsewhere. State law, let's say, or Supreme Court or something like that. So I think we have all 5 of those levels to look at in terms of what, if there's a problem, where it sits, and then to be educated as to what the alternatives might be to solve it, both from our staff as well as from the community if people have other ideas. So it's up to us, I guess, to figure out whether we acknowledge all those different items or just start with 1 or 2. But we've heard a lot, so I want people to know they've been heard.
Well, I personally think that they know we've been heard, that's why we're here.
Okay.
My thing is, I don't want, people are just now throwing everything out there. And that's why I want to funnel, like, you know, I can't do nothing about the dog barking. Well, no, I'll take a real instance, for instance. You know, they want to talk about, you know, we shouldn't allow these other people to come over and crowd their rally. You know, we don't have anything in place for that. I'm just saying. So that's why I want to stick to, if we can, to keep the confusion down so everybody knows what we're talking about and not off the mark. Let's start here and do this, go through that, and do one at a time.
Well, and that one's not on my list because I think it's already covered, but somebody might.
But I'm just saying, you're
Understood.
saying, we've gotten a lot of emails, and there's been a lot of things that people want us to do that we can't do.
Understood.
We can talk about it, but we
But
can't.
until we address it, we won't have taken it off the list, if you will, if there are some.
So if you want to go through your list, you're welcome to, and then we can figure out where we want, what 3 we want.
Well, what I had under use of force was actually just standard interactions, escalation and de-escalation, chokeholds, fleeing vehicles, fleeing persons, no-knock warrants. I can give you a copy of this if you want, you don't have to write it all down. Duty to intervene.
Do you have a copy now?
I do.
I'm sorry. You have a mic there?
I got one. Thank you.
Just that one. Duty to intervene. The fact that car chases are banned right now. Qualified immunity. The issues of hiring, discipline, personnel records, DOJ reports. If somebody's not done well, where does it go with their records? And also the effectiveness of the internal review process, which goes from a board to supervisors, to the chief, to the internal auditor, to the city manager, and the council already. You know, how does that process working? So that's what I had under use of force. Then there's been discussion more nationally than locally, but about deployment of officers for special needs populations such as homeless, mental health, human trafficking, domestic violence. So just exploring what the balance is that we have here. The third group that I had was prevention. You know, what are we doing about youth, about neighborhoods, and about reentry? The next category was race, color, and diversity. That really is an overlay on every single one of the other categories, but also making sure that we have addressed profiling or disparate treatment, and also our recruiting of diversity to the police force. The next grouping that I had was community engagement, people wanting to talk about ways for a regular review and feedback from youth, from the full community, and from minorities, various minorities. Also, what kind of outreach we're doing in terms of events and ongoing. Is it enough, too much, whatever? And then also customer service protocols, how people are treated if they call in for prevention or a problem. And the last one that I put on my list, which more came out of the council budget than the community conversations, are the deployment of officers for the best use of tax dollars, comparable cities, as well as our Topeka budget. So that was my best effort to gather them all together and try to do some grouping.
Okay.
And I'm certainly comfortable with Councilman Padilla's angle that use of force keeps coming up a lot, and exploring that first makes sense to me. So.
Okay. So Is there a motion on the table for first item?
Well, I'd make a motion that we begin our discussions under the topic of use of force and related issues to that. And that would be the training, practice, procedure, and all those related to the use of force that we currently have, because it seems to be a topic of misunderstanding and discussion, and I'd like to get facts clear.
Okay, that's your motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Kind of a long motion, but.
It is.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, it's 3-0. Okay, so that would be the first, number 1. Okay, and then under that, Mike, how long do you think that would take? Do you think that would take like a whole session or?
I honestly believe, to give it serious consideration, we can't rush it.
Right.
I think because it will cover the whole spectrum of a traffic ticket to a domestic violence to some other kind of violent encounter. So it's going to have to cover a broad range of activities that the officers are required to respond to, and the training that they will utilize during those types of interactions.
Okay, so standard interactions, that's what Karen has on here.
Mhm.
Now, Karen, what are you defining as standard? Is that the same thing Mike just did? Speeding tickets, is that what you said, Mike?
Yeah.
Domestic,
Fights,
Anything. What
Anything.
is the protocol for how the first approach should be made? And is it the same for all issues? You know, just start there, because that we need to be educated on before we go into these more specific categories, I would think.
okay, so I'm gonna say standard interactions for number 2 or under that, okay? Is that okay?
Mhm.
So that should cover that. So I'll put that motion on the floor for standard interactions for number 2. Is there a second?
a second.
I think that will cover any and all use of force, should. Okay. What about number 3?
Question?
Yes.
And maybe, is it Lieutenant Haltom? Captain?
Captain.
Captain Haltom can answer this question, but if the standard protocol and training for escalation and de-escalation is included in the standard interaction, you know, in the protocol for a first interaction, maybe that would be part of it. It is.
Can you go to the mic for me, please? Introduce yourself and give us your.
Captain Jamie Haltom. If I'm understanding the question correctly, you're asking about training for officers in the escalation and/or de-escalation of force as it relates to standard interactions, or?
We're trying to winnow this list down.
Gotcha.
And so if, what I recall, because we've been through some testimony from the chief and even more broadly than that, is that he has identified for us that there are X number of hours of training. I'm sure in standard interactions, we haven't really talked about that, you know, first visit, but in escalation and de-escalation. And then he has told us that it's included, actually, it kind of threaded through a lot of the different training that you do in terms of escalation and de-escalation. So if maybe it's something that would be threaded through each one of these issues, but I don't know if it would be different depending on the type of issue, or if that training is kind of, no matter what situation you're in, whether that training carries through just the same. You follow me?
It does carry through. I mean, there is standalone de-escalation training provided
Okay.
to the officers. That training is threaded throughout use of force training, whether that be on the range or actual empty hand control tactics or standard interactions. That training is threaded throughout those trainings, as well as a standalone de-escalation training that's provided to officers.
So those really would be two different topics for us to address then?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Thank
So
you.
the third one would be escalation, de-escalation, Karen, is what you're saying?
Sounds like it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're really number 1 and 2 under use of force. That would give us a baseline to go into those more specific
Okay,
interactions.
so number 3 would be escalation.
Maybe it's sort of semantics, but I would see those as item, use of force is our first grouping, and those as the first and second issues that we would
Okay,
address.
okay. Where would fleeing vehicle and fleeing person, where would that come under? Can I ask you the same question? Is that separate, Mike? You think that's separate?
Captain, if you would stay at the podium for a little bit, I think we're going to have a few questions for you. I don't want to answer for him, but
Okay,
I believe that would be under a different, separate policy with regards to fleeing vehicles and so forth. But I see where you're going on this.
I was just trying to get a feel.
Sure.
Since we got a little time, and we got a little list, we've got more, but we can start here. That's what's in.
Well, I think if I may,
Yes, you
Madam
may.
Chair, thank you. When we talked about escalation, de-escalation training, I think what would follow right after that is the reporting of any kind of incident that the officers were unable to de-escalate. So it's still in that use of force thing. And then it could come up. You're talking about the fleeing vehicles. I kind of see that as a separate
These are separate.
discussion myself,
Okay,
because that's a very specific event, whereas in de-escalation, it could start off at a high end and officers able to take it down to a lower end and still be able to control a situation or provide services in a situation that didn't escalate to use of force. But if it did not, and they had to use a hands-on use of force, then that's what we would talk about. What is that training associated with that hands-on use of force? How do you control an individual? How do you do it without harm to the officer or the citizen? How do you handcuff? If there is an injury, how is it reported? What follow-up
right.
happens on that?
So with that, would you drop down to the very last one on this and talk about the internal review process and the effectiveness of it as number 3?
I don't know that I'd jump all the way down to that, because I think there's plenty in between.
Okay.
With the escalation and de-escalation, the reporting process, and then I think we'll eventually get to that, because as you're talking about, a supervisor shows up, has a supervisory report, what's the tracking on that supervisory report, what's the follow-up, and all those other things. And if it goes beyond that, we get into the professional standards and
Right.
independent auditor, all those other things. But a lot has to happen before it gets to there. It can happen very quickly, but a lot has to happen.
And I thank you for that, because we are here to educate and we need to know all of this. And so we need to know where, when we get to that, Karen, what I will be looking at is how did we get to an independent auditor? And I know, and what brought that up, because I think we need to I know how it's done, but we need to be educating everybody so they will understand any and all committees that we have, what is their purpose, are they played out? We're treating this like we did code. So as far as the training, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is get educated on how we come to that point. And you're right, there's things that happen so fast, but so that we get an understanding, and then that might bring up more questions.
That's fine.
The no car chase, okay, duty to intervene. Would duty to intervene go with the fleeing vehicle into Mike?
I think duty to intervene could be and would be included in the use of force.
And the use of force?
Mhm.
Do you want to put that up as the
Yeah,
number 3?
I like that.
Okay.
Number three?
Mhm.
Well, if it's 1, 2, 3 under use of force.
Liz, I hope you're keeping track.
I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Plus, I thought we were going to stop there, so that made it easy.
No, we're gonna
Oh.
keep going for a little bit.
Oh,
So,
but would those 3 kind of go together, do you think?
I think they would. I do believe, if I may,
yes, you may.
I do believe that there'll be a lot of discussion. So I think it will be time-consuming, even on these few topics.
I agree.
And I think Captain Holton, the chief, whoever he designates, would be valuable in providing us and updating us. Specifically, again, it goes back to what both of my co-chair committee members have said about being accurate in the information that we receive, so that when we make a report to the governing body, it's all based on facts. And anybody following this committee's work will hopefully use facts and not alternative facts that's been accepted at the national level, but use real facts when they're discussing what
Not
work we're
fake
trying to do.
news, real
Not fake
news.
news, yeah, real news.
Real news, or real facts, and not fake facts. Okay. All right. I know we brought you back to the podium. You're looking good at the podium, though. Hang on just a second.
I think he's smiling too.
I am too, I don't know who that meant.
The smiling eyes behind that.
Okay, so we have use of force in training, right? Number 1. Standard interactions.
I think under that one, I'm looking at,
Duty to intervene and,
Oh, yeah.
and fleeing.
I think bias profiling. I think that's something that would come up under that, because sometimes that's how an interaction is initiated between law enforcement and a citizen is on a traffic stop.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then escalation, de-escalation. What, Liz, can you read those back to me?
Okay.
It's a test.
Okay, the first item was for the use of force,
Mhm.
right? Let's see here. Second item, standard interaction and bias profiling. And third is the escalation, de-escalation.
Did we move that up? Yeah, right?
Was there another one?
Yeah, we did. Or duty to intervene. I
Duty
think.
to intervene.
Okay.
Was number 3, right?
Uh-huh.
That's why I know I missed it.
Okay.
And then fleeing vehicle, fleeing person, and under escalation, de-escalation?
I thought we were going to kind of finish those first 3
Yeah.
and then go to some of the more specific ones, because we would have the basics of how an engagement is supposed to happen.
Okay, so Liz, can you read that off? Let's see if we got it right this time.
Use of force, standard interaction and bias profiling, escalation, de-escalation, and duty to intervene. Kind of, is that kind of on that same item, or we'll split those up?
That's not what we-
I'm kind of stuck on the list, but I mean, there's the interaction and then there's how you evaluate it. And so if the interaction is a standard interaction and the escalation, de-escalation that goes with that, and then the issue of duty to intervene, we will want to know facts. We will want to know what training occurs. We will want to know what the administrative policy and procedures are. We will want to know what the bias profiling issues are that have been raised about that particular, either the practice or on the street.
Okay, so we have use of force and training, that's what I have, right? For number 1. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
the training
getting-
kind of goes with each issue.
Yeah,
Right, okay, so we're gonna automatically know that everyone is training.
Exactly.
Okay, use of force. Second one was standard interactions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, Liz?
Yes.
Third one was duty to intervene.
Escalation.
Escalation,
There's where I'm
de-escalation.
messing up at, okay.
Well, yeah, if you just start with
Okay,
one.
escalation, de-escalation.
Number 3,
Number 3. Give me number 4.
duty to intervene.
Duty to intervene.
Duty to intervene. Okay,
Yep.
here's our 4. Do I have a motion? Are we all in agreement? These are our first 4.
I'd move to accept these as the first 4 topics for our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those approved, right hand. Raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay, so those are our first 4. That's not all that we're going to do. That's just where we're going to start. Okay?
That's fine.
All right. And are you the training officer?
No, ma'am.
No, but you're, okay, thank you. Thank you. Chief, I see you back there. Thank you, you can have a seat.
Oh, you can come in.
That's where we're gonna start, Chief,
Sounds like a tall task.
okay? And the way that it will be structured, I think you've been in several of my meetings, you know, we will do as time allows us. If time doesn't, if we run out of time, then we'll roll it back over to the next meeting to be continued. Okay, so I'll make sure that Liz gets that to you.
I think that's a good list to start with.
Okay.
And as you're already aware, we're already doing some of that preventive stuff. We got the ABLE training that'll be, officers getting trained at the end of this month and be rolling that out here relatively soon, so.
All right, then we'll start there. Do we want to set the next, oh, sorry.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may, Chief? Chief, turn that thing up, man. I would just like to ask the chair if it's okay if we ask the chief, knowing what we're going to be discussing, any and all personnel who can answer the questions or are directly involved, and if they're supporting training videos or any of those kinds of things that we can receive by the committee. That way it comes as kind of a packet when we finally move on to the next one. So when we do bring something to the body, we'll have documentation. And because I think, as I understood it from the chair earlier, we hope that to update the governing body on this committee's work as we go forward, rather than waiting to the very end. This way people know we're working, they know what we're working on, and as things are presented, if new issues come up, then they can be brought to the committee. And I know you have an excellent staff on hand, it's just being able to have them available on a day that we pick for our next meeting. So,
Yes, sir. You'll have unfeathered access to Captain Holtum.
okay,
We've reassigned some of his duties. He knows that this is his priority, and he's basically assigned to this committee, and will be there anytime you need any resources or anything you need. He's the contact person,
thank you, sir.
and he will make himself available when you need him.
Thank you, appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Chief.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I agree, any and all slides, videos, whatever we can get, that would be helpful, okay? Let's talk about, are we ready to go to number 4? Number 4.
Well, if
Oh,
I
I'm
could
sorry.
ask a question,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Because I want to make sure at each meeting, it's a little hard to do it on the fly, but if there are specific things that we want the department or Liz to gather, you were asking for training kinds of things. Do we also want to, I mean, we put training, bias profiling, policies and procedures. Are we wanting anybody to sift through all the stuff we've got and profile the local complaints within the last couple of years? Are we going to wait to look for that and consider it till after we've had our training? It seemed kind of like it might be helpful for us to have those things in mind as, and save a little time, but maybe, I don't know if we've all received the same sometimes we have counsel at topeka.org. We've all gotten the same things. We may not have gotten through them. We get different phone calls in different constituencies. I just want to make sure that we make good use of our time when we go through the training by being kind of on top of the specifics of what people's concerns might have been.
Are you, I guess we could get a report of, I think the last maybe 2-3 years, we can ask them to give us a report, and if we want more, we can go through that. That would be follow-up for the next meeting.
Well, you're on track with, I really wasn't sure how we were going to tackle this, but in the discussions, for instance, even coming out of my own mouth, it's like, yeah, well, this happened X, and I realized it was like 20 years ago. And if we want to limit the things that we talk about to things that have happened recently, if we want them to bring forward, like you say, 2 or 3 years or 5 years, I don't know what the number is even of complaints that there might have been that we would even find, and I just
either,
don't know.
And we, yes.
Madam Chair, I believe the department still files a report, doesn't it, with the state with regards to complaints received and investigated, founded, unfounded. They still file that report. I think it's by law they have to participate. So that's readily available, so they should be able to provide that. I don't know that I personally think it would be helpful to go into, okay, back on January of 2017, this and this happened, because then I think then we might get caught up in re-arguing or trying to make those cases for what happened or didn't happen on those particular incidents. I would like to see a report, a report that is provided to the state. That way it shows the city is complying with that obligation. And if somebody has questions, well, why did we have these many complaints? They could respond by, well, this was an issue that was brought forth, and so now we've addressed it through training, something like that, so you go forward. I just don't want to go backward.
I want to make sure, again, that maybe with the choice of these 4 items and some publicity about the fact that that's what we're going to work on, then if people have situations that they think we should know about, they can drop us an email. You said Liz, but that's etoin@topeka.org, and put police committee in the subject line. But we know, for instance, that we've heard from the minority community that they just don't call the police, either on an issue or with a complaint. Until very recently, there was a process by which if you came in to file a complaint, you got encouraged to go talk to a senior officer and not file the complaint. And that's changed. My understanding is that's changed a little bit with the IPA and location and simply invitation on that. And so I'm aware of some folks who had situations that they were not happy with that won't show up on a complaint roster. And I just want to make sure that if it's a problem, that we're aware of enough information that we are able to address it.
The problem is, Karen, and you're right, there's people that won't come forward.
Right.
And so that doesn't get on any of our data information.
Correct.
And there's nothing we can do about that but to encourage them to come forward so that it does get on the data information. And you know, that's what's really, really sad, because you know, I hear so many times is the police won't do anything, but when I pull the data information or the crime stats, this is all that's been reported. So what can I do until you tell me that there's a problem? The problem I don't want to see is, you know, 20 years ago I was wronged by the police.
Exactly.
You should have brought that forward. You should have brought that forward. And if it's happened more than one time, you should have brought that forward. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to fix a problem that we don't really know if it's a problem because you haven't brought it forward. We have people in place. Do we still have the, what's his title, Chief? I think I brought some people in, talked to him, and he's kind of the liaison. Is his position still there, Chief?
Yeah, Officer William Lister, he's the liaison officer.
Right.
And, you know, we've also added a new email account, chiefsoffice.com.
Okay.
And so if people have every opportunity in the world to come forward. They can do it anonymously, and we've had this process for over 7 years. So when if somebody's telling you they had difficulty reporting something, I would say there's probably a little more involved there, because you can report anything to the police department in a variety of different ways. Anonymously, phone calls, emails, I mean, it goes on and on. We have the most liberal way to report any type of complaint as far as law enforcement activities that you'll find in the state of Kansas, if not the country.
I just want to make sure. And so those are going to be part of my training, again, that I want to see is if you have a complaint, this is where you go, this is the email, this is the phone number. I want any and all of that education so that we can share that with people. But when we have people that don't want to come forward, it makes it very, very hard, because sometimes I don't know whether they're telling the truth or whether they're not telling the truth. And then I don't want us to do all this research on something that, and I know it happens. I do know it happens.
Well, and because we have agreed to serve on this committee and we want to hear it, if it's not going to show up in the data, but someone thinks it's real, then I do want to hear about that, because I want us to be able to do the best we can to process through that and say, was it the person who just didn't want to, or was there something in our system that we could improve, because that's why we're here. So, and I am aware, I mean, I represent a pretty diverse and challenging district, and I've been through that before. And I want to hear about all the programs and the availability and how much it gets used. We may find that there's redundancy in some of that too. And so just, I want to make sure everybody gets heard and considered. So, thanks.
Okay. Did you have anything else? You're done?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to move on to 4. Do we want to set a meeting now? Does everybody?
How often?
I want to be able to process it, so right now I'm going to ask 3 weeks out. So that would be the last week of October. 3 weeks out would be the last week of October. October 26th is a Monday. Is that good for you guys?
See, this is good. This is a good time for me, but I do have some meetings on Mondays from 3 to 5 sometimes, but not weekly. So 26th is great.
I want to give staff an opportunity to.
Mm-hmm.
26 works for me.
Okay.
I have an early morning, but the rest of the day is,
I think that works for me too, Liz. So let's do October 26th at 3 o'clock. Can I get a motion on that?
So move.
second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. And the location will stay the same, please. With the LLC, what this committee wants to hear is the use of force training and standard interactions, number 2. What will be on the agenda, that's what we want to hear. Other things will come later, but for the next meeting, if you have any concerns or questions, that's what we want to hear. That's what I want to hear. From any and all people. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee?
No. I'm trying to get it before I forget.
I hear you.
We might want to clarify for the public that we expect to do all of this, assuming that's the case, as a committee. There was some thought from some folks that we'd be creating some other task force or something, but just to clarify.
Okay, again, I'm going to say this again. This committee was formed because the mayor sent this issue to the committee. So now it's in committee, okay? So we're the ones that decide. 1, 2, 3, we have the votes. We decide what goes on the agenda and what we're going to discuss. All 3 of us have decided that we want to talk about any and everything. That includes any and everything. okay? Even if it's nothing that we can do anything about. Having said that, we're gonna work with any and everybody, okay? So that should, any and everything legally covers everything. Am I correct, Lisa? Where you at, Lisa?
There she is.
You're correct.
Can you define any and everything in the legal aspect of this?
You guys, yes, any and everything.
What does that define?
Any and everything?
Yes.
I don't have my Black's Law dictionary has any and everything in it, but I could find it.
Google it then.
Does that include everybody?
You guys have great latitude and discretion when it comes to this subject matter. It's pretty broad in nature, so I think you three, 1, 2, 3, as you said, can decide what you want to cover.
Okay, so
Sounds like a good
we're not gonna put another side committee together. We're not gonna work with one side and not the other. We're here for the facts. We're here to bring everything to the table. That's why I came with nothing but my pen. I borrowed this paper from Karen to bring everything to the table. I even came without my glasses to bring everything. We're not side working with anybody. We want to work with everybody. We want to understand everybody. I don't know how much clearer I can make it.
Just wanted to make sure.
There's not going to be any committees coming out of this, and we will present back to the council just like any other committee. So that's that. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, that includes you, that includes you, whoever. Okay, now, having said that, we've set our next meeting for October 26th at 2020 at 3 p.m. And I want to see how much time we have for questions.
Okay.
If we have questions after each one, and I'll get with you on the schedule. Also, I know Mike Padilla has a big announcement of something that he's been working on, and so I want to make sure that we have announcements on here. We don't, but we'll be willing to listen to your big announcement from my beautiful bracelet.
Well, we've got an extension in completing the Topeka Counts census for 2020. Federal judge ruled that we can continue until the end of October. So for those of you who have not yet filled out your census, please take the time, about 5 to 10 minutes, and you can use your mobile cell phone or you can use a computer. It's very easy to do. I think it's about 10 questions. We still are within range of meeting and exceeding our goal from 10 years ago. So I would encourage everybody to ask your family, friends, neighbors, anybody you talk to, ask them, have you filled out your census? And everybody counts. Make sure you get those kids included as well. So that's very important. You know, we, as council, we get a lot of requests from the community to fill the potholes or to build another fire station or add more police officers. And we want to do all that, but it takes money. And a lot of that is funded by federal funds, and that's based on the population that we report. I hear too much in the community about we're losing population. We've got to get our heads up and start counting the people that we have here and take care of them. And in order to do that, we need everybody to participate in that census. So I appreciate that, Chair, to allow me to make that commercial to complete the census as soon as possible. Don't wait till the last week of October. Just go ahead and do it now. You can do it while you're sitting waiting for your hamburgers at a drive-thru. So it's very easy to do. Thank you.
That's Councilman Mike Padilla, and he approves of that message. Okay, Karen, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else to come before this committee,
Nope.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you.